Here's my car. It's a 1989 Honda CRX Si, 1.6 liter. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to replace the motor mounts in this vehicle. So you can see the passenger side motor mount is looking in pretty good shape. You can see the driver side motor mount is looking in pretty decent shape. There's not a lot of cracking or anything visible when you get way down in there. But I have noticed, and it's going to be a little difficult to see in the video, but where you can see that bolt center frame, the front motor mount is cracked. So I'm trying to replace that. I've already bought some replacement parts off of eBay, which you can see in the box sitting over there. I already tried to install the driver side motor mount, and apparently the new motor mount that I bought off of eBay seems to be the wrong size. There's too much space between these two bolts and the center of this bolt, and then the width of the sides of the rubber stabilizer are too wide to fit back into this stock bracket. So I'm not sure why that one's not lining up. I'm going to move on to do the front motor mount just to see if all my brackets are misaligned and I somehow bought the wrong parts, but we'll go from there. So one of the things to get to that motor mount is removing your fan, and as far as I can tell, even after removing the battery, that removing the fan, you need to remove this coolant tube, and rather than leak coolant everywhere, I'm just gonna drain the cooling system, remove the fan, change the motor mount, and put stuff back in reverse order. So first off, to remove the radiator, I'm just undoing the cap, taking that off, setting it off to the side somewhere where I do not lose it. And then down below on the front, let's see, passenger side of the radiator, let me go down and see if I can get a better shot. So to access the radiator drain, you actually need to remove some of the splash guarding underneath your vehicle. This is some two pieces, so you can take the front passenger side off first. There's two 10mm bolts and then a couple of just plastic body clips that you can remove. And if you do that, you will see this plastic valve right here, which is the coolant drain valve. And there's a little hole right below it, which I'm assuming that's where the coolant comes from. So I'm gonna get a bucket set up, catch tray, and I'm raising this up as high as I can just so I don't get any unnecessary splashing when I drain this. And with that top cap open to my radiator, I'm gonna try to reach up in here and turn this to the open position, which is a little difficult to do with one hand. 1 second. Okay, I managed to use a pair of needle nose vice grips to grab the sides of this and turn it just to break it. So now it should be loose. I'm gonna stack this back up my supports just so I don't get any splashing. Let's go ahead and see what this does. And then turn this all the way out. And there comes the coolant. So now we'll go ahead and let this drain. I'm going to slide in another support just to keep that splashing at a minimum. That should do it. It's going to take a few minutes to drain all the way out, and then we'll go to the next step. So it looks like the coolant has stopped dripping now. I'm going to just kind of give the radiator a little bit of a shakedown. Okay, I think it's pretty empty. So I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna move this out of the way. I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna close that valve, and then I think I'm gonna try to pull the radiator. It looks like it hasn't been replaced. The car came with very thorough service records for the last 30 years from the single owner. So I was able to put together a timeline of when all the major parts have been replaced already, and I'm pretty confident that the radiator has not been replaced ever. So I think I'm going to pull that, probably order a new one just to be on the safe side, because what I've seen online and what I've heard is that having any amount of air leak or air bubbles in your cooling system can cause an erratic idle. And what I'm experiencing is a bit of an erratic idle situation. So I will first start by eliminating my radiator as a factor. So I'll go ahead and get this thing pulled out, and then we can remove the fan, and then we can get back to what I was originally trying to do, which was change the motor mounts. These are kind of shock mounts for the radiator. So they sit inside this little rubber gasket. There's just two 10 millimeter bolts holding on the brackets on either side. Pop those off, pop the one on the other side off, and now the radiator is loose on the top. And I'm starting to take off this tubing here. So I've used a pair of channel locks to squeeze these clamps, and I slid this one from here back over to here. And I also unscrewed this little ribbon clamp, push that in the middle. And then I was just trying to loosen these hoses a bit. So I was kind of grabbing a little bit low with these channel locks and trying to twist up and down. And that kind of breaks free any kind of gunk or seal that was built up. So you don't have to try to jam like a flathead screwdriver under there or anything. And then if I do this side too as well, just grab it, twist from side to side. And now both sides are free, and they should just kind of slide right off now. So with the upper radiator hose removed, then I can have access to remove the fan, which is just attached by electrical lead here. And then I'll have full access to my front motor mount. I'm forgetting that to remove the radiator, there are two final things you have to do. Obviously, I have to still remove the hose clamp on the lower radiator hose, and then also you have to remove your coolant overflow canister is still attached. And this one is probably the easiest part to service on the car. Just slides right out. But for this one down here, I'm gonna hop down there with, looks like 8 millimeter or a flathead screwdriver. Don't like using flatheads because they strip too easy. But I'll get a little 8 millimeter ratchet down in there and pop that hose off too. Okay, and now look how much room we have. It's really not that bad to, if you're trying to do a project like this, I think to take the fan and the radiator out. It's the battery fan radiator. But then you have like super clear access to both of these motor mounts. And you know, if you know what you're doing even more than I do, that would take you 10 minutes total. Half the time spent draining the coolant. So yeah, this gives us a great space to work. You can actually see down here, there's two other shock mounts for where the radiator kind of slots into. So it just plugs down into there and then screws back in with those brackets up top. But yeah, next we're gonna work on replacing those mounts, probably in a separate video. And just kind of wanted to do a little bit of a kickoff on this car and this project, and just trying to really give back to the YouTube community and CRX community in particular, because I've already learned so much by watching everyone else's videos. So if this is your first time working on cars or jumping into any sort of project, just remember, everyone's got a camera in their pocket nowadays, so take pictures as you go. I take 1,000 pictures while I'm working on these projects. I take pictures of single bolts so I know where they go when they go back in. I can always go back. Everything auto syncs to Google Photos. So I have this huge library of the location of everything I removed from the car, so I know exactly where to put everything back in the car. I don't always know what I'm doing. Sometimes I make mistakes. Buy the manual. Buy the Haynes manual or the Climber manual or the factory tech manual from Honda or any other manufacturer for your car, and use that to look up all the information. Don't always just use Google. Don't always just rely on the forums unless you really get stuck. Most of that information, people get it wrong all the time. And it's way simpler just to have a book in your garage that you can look up, where you don't need a good Wi-Fi signal, and get stuff done. So, take pictures, buy the manual, make mistakes, learn, have fun.